Welcome back to Ferocious Education. This is Zed. Today I'm going to be talking about SPAQ, Spartan Energy Acquisition Corporations. What we're going to be doing here today is we're going to look into an extensive profile for this company, its parent company, and its recent acquisition and plan, technical analysis, recent news, and how I think it would actually move based on previous companies that did similar acquisitions. Now, before we move forward, please drop a like to this video to help this channel grow. Subscribe to the channel to get the latest added videos and turn your notifications on for this channel. So first things first, we're looking into the 1 month, 1 day perspective, and we get to see here that the MACD is curving upwards. It might take a little bit off a week or so in order to see that kind of reversal. I mean, we're sitting in, it could be a little bit more than actually a week. It's probably not next week, the week after, where it sees a really nice reversal based on the MACD alone. Now the speed of reversal really depends as well on TRs. Now moving on towards the average directional index, it is still dipping down. It hasn't stabilized much yet, so we need to look into the 1 hour perspective in order to determine whether there's a trend or not that might hold. Now in terms of willing percent R here, you're seeing a stock that has been oversold a few times over already and is sitting in a little bit between the neutral and oversold territory. Now looking in terms of the momentum here, what we're seeing is that the stock is building back momentum, which all looks basically a trend where it did have a strong trend, but it's kind of losing it at the same point, with a little bit of a warning where the reversal still in chance coming in soon. I'll let you know how I'll play the stock, but let's first look into the averages. So the 10 SMA is curving down towards the 30 EMA, so as long as the 10 SMA is above the 30 EMA, it's bullish, but the distance between these two are very much getting smaller and smaller by the day. So the stock is still above the 50 SMA to 200 SMA, but it did kind of hit the 50 SMA a few times. As long as it's above it, it's still bullish. So now going towards the 1 hour perspective, what we get to see here is that the MACD is kind of stuck a little bit on the negative 0.09 on the histogram, or 0.07 on the histogram, and there's no signs of actually seeing that kind of reversal on Monday, so it might actually bleed a little bit more on Monday before it moves forward, although I really doubt it that it would actually not see a little bit more green on Monday, or at least a little bit of a very small red. It's not gonna dip hard. Now moving on towards ADX, it really shows in that there was a trend happening in the extended market. It hit around 45.9 and then really started dipping down and losing that trend. So right now it's moving back to a little bit more sloppy. The stock price now, 30 EMA is really touching the 10 SMA, and what could happen here is you could either see a reversal where the 30 EMA is above the 10 SMA and that makes it bearish, and the stock price dips below the 50 SMA, which makes it as well more bearish. Stock price is under the 200 SMA. So the moving averages don't look that good right now. Now moving on towards the willing percent R, we're seeing a stock that is again between the oversold and the neutral. And in terms of momentum, it looks like it's a little bit sloppy on there. So we need to understand better the company's catalysts and moving averages in order to trade this nicely. Now the stock price is trading below the moving average band here in cyan purple. So it's actually just gotten in the moving average band. So we expect it to trade between 1228 and 1351, although that moving average band seems to be dipping a little. So we need to be careful of that. Now comes into the supports and resistances that we get to see here. So there is a resistance at 1312. This one I actually drew and put it on Twitter a while ago, and it did actually just touch the 1312 and then dip back down. Now in terms of different resistances and supports, we're seeing as well right now a resistance traditionally on 1243. And then this one is another one, 1228. It's currently sitting just about there. And then we're seeing another one, a support at 1203. And then a support at 1170. And then in terms of resistance, we're still seeing one just below the Fibonacci at 1283. And then above the Fibonacci of 1312, we're seeing a little bit of different ones here and there. So 1337, we're seeing 1373, or more of 1366. And then we're seeing another one, 1417. And then we're seeing 1432. 1458 and 1473. Now in terms of different trends and trend lines, it's a little bit difficult in order to determine that kind of stuff from this kind of chart, just because it's actually dipping pretty hard. Now we can look into the 3 months 1 day here, and you get to see that one could argue that it is still on somewhat of a trend, but what it kind of looks like right now is that it did have a massive jump where it did see somewhere around 200 something percent or sorry, 100%, and then start dipping down on a downtrend. What you want to have it is you want to wait for it to accumulate a little, but let's look in towards the company's perspective and what they have to offer before we start judging the movements coming in. Because this one here, the more I read, the more I like this company. And here's why I think it has a really nice future. So the electrical vehicle developer Brisker is to list on NYSE through a merger with Spartan Energy Acquisition Group. So what is the news here? Is it, for instance, an EV company merging with an EV company? Not really. So Spartan Energy Acquisition Group is a special purpose acquisition entity focused on energy value chain in North America. And so there is some kind of companies where they do pick up more of companies with potential and merge with them or have them under their portfolio in order to develop them and raise them in value. And so that's how the company makes money. So going on, we're going to look into the financials here for SPAQ. And what we get to see here from 2019 to 2018, that they did have a little bit of the net income was higher, for instance. We're seeing 8.8 million compared to 2.6 million, which is amazing. But in terms of coming in towards the total, the net income per share for Class A is 0.18, for Class B is 0.07. So now we're not getting used to it, seeing it that much in terms of different classes, shares, and whatnot. But what we get to see here is that it's a little bit mixed news, because what we're looking at here is different parts. So we're just going to stick to the final net income here going in. There was an increase from 2019 to 2018. Now, in terms of revenue, that is blank, and usually why that is happening is because the company's revenue doesn't go straight to them; it does go to their subsidiaries and whatnot. So it's a little bit off different accounting tricks and whatnot. So let's take a quick look into Apollo. So Apollo is the parent company of SPAQ, and basically that's the ones that they're managing the entire portfolio. So they have around 150 plus portfolio companies since inception, an AUM of 73 billion, and the latest fund IX for $24.7 billion. They are holding in a large portfolio and a large amount of companies under them, so that is a good sign there. So this transaction is to provide more than $1 billion of gross proceeds to the company, including $500 million fully committed common stock PIPE at $10 per share, anchored by existing and new investors, including more strategic ventures and alliance. So basically what they're saying here is, well, there is going to be more of a $10 per share for PIPE price, but it's going to be more of a merger, and a lot of the money is going to go through Frisker's, and I'm going to go through Frisker's website in a minute, development. So this basically says the exact same thing I said, but here's a different thing here is that they have the acquisition combination from August 4th, 2020 to February 14th, 2021. That's basically the extension that the stockholder approved. And so the first transaction is expected to be completed on the fourth quarter in 2020. We're currently in the third quarter, so we expect it to be perhaps closer to the end of the year. There's a little bit of uncertainty over there, right? So at the end of the year, you never know what happens to the market. It's a little bit of a longer hold, for instance. Definitely not a penny stock, for instance, when you think about it, but it is kind of traded a little bit like that for just a little, and I'll show you why. Now, this is Frisker here. One of their projects, or one of their main projects, is the Frisker Ocean. It's set to arrive in 2022. Basically, trying to have a lot of the material is made from recycled, abandoned fishing nets, and plastics from the oceans are used environmentally for the interiors. It's a four-wheel kind of a crossover, which is very popular in that kind of EV field. And you get to see that they're trying to have 1,000 free miles per year at a average range of 250 to 300 miles per charge. So what they're trying to have is more of the luxury EV kind of fields. You can get to see this one has a little bit of resemblance to what the Porsche, for instance, would be, the SUV. So I see what their style they're going for instead of the little bit of the cyberpunk Tesla look. Same information I did go on there. It's also listed on the Frisker's website. Now going on, this was still on the Frisker's website, but it does refer to the SPAQ filing. It's basically the same thing that we're talking about there in terms of Class A shares and Class B shares for around the $10 PIPE merger per share. More pictures and more videos coming in towards this vehicle. you get to see that it does have that kind of EV futuristic kind of interior look. More pictures in here on their website, so not a lot going there. Now going on towards the institutional buyers and what this one is doing in terms of institution. Now on the 31st, this company here did decrease their shares, but looking at everything else, other than on the back a couple of months ago, that's before even I think the announcement, we don't see much of a decrease, but in fact we see an increase here. So this company here did increase their shares by 112,000%. So they basically bought around 300,000 shares for this company at an average price of $9. This one here around a million shares at 10.20, million 1.6 shares at 10.41. Well, that's increased by 3 times, so just above a million. And we're looking at 450,000 shares and 500,000 shares. There's a lot of institutional shares going in this, and usually these companies do hold it for a little bit longer, and they're not trading. You don't really trade with a million shares, for instance. And you get to see basically, we're gonna move forward here, but you get to see that there is institutional value for this, and for this company, for instance, they hold around 532 million shares and around only 117 current positions, and one of them is that company. Now you're seeing a little bit of different names here and there, but they are trading with a larger amount of shares. You gotta know something. That's basically the idea of taking a look into our institutional shares. Now moving on towards the latest AQ share AQ filings, or sorry, 8K filings. This was the extension from August 14th to February 14th. What are we seeing here is vote security holders that passed on amendment to Article Incorporation's bylaws that has passed, and that is basically as well part of the acquisition. Now going on towards just a 3 months, that's the 10Q filing, which is the quarterly report. You get to see that the current cash on hand has decreased a little. Total assets have been more gone towards a third. That's for SPAQ. In terms of different revenues and whatnot, by the way, total assets, you shouldn't be scared of that. For instance, total current assets has decreased, but total overall assets has increased. So you can get to see what they're doing there. So it's not more of a warning sign. It's just allocations of different assets and equities in that company. Total liability of the stockholder has increased a little bit in terms for the equity, or might have actually just been quite the same. I mean, we're talking about $500 million. When you're talking about around $4 million, it's not a big difference there. Revenues is left out there, as I explained a little bit earlier. In terms of the net loss, the total net loss, there is a massive net loss coming in from where it had a profit to a net loss, so that's a little bit concerning. But this was COVID era, where the first quarter, so this company really took a beating on it. We'll give it a pass since we see that there's different acquisitions and different movements for it there. So how am I going to trade it? What am I seeing in this company's future? So this company has had quite a bit of a rough time before, hovering around the $9-10 phase. It is currently sitting at 1236. It did test around 1159 and it did jump around 2160. Quarter 4 is quite a long time from here. We're still at quarter 3. Would I want to stick my money on here? I would definitely consider putting in a portion and leaving it. Now, if you're thinking about, I want to trade this, I want to flip it up like penny stocks, I don't think this is a stock for you. This one will test your patience, in my opinion, at least for the next week. You're not going to see perhaps any action until the week after, but once this kind of pulls through, I do remember, for instance, different companies where they did kind of this movements, and they did jump quite a bit after the merger. So what is my expectation for this stock? I expect the stock to test that support that we talked about just earlier, get a little bit closer towards perhaps the $11-10 range, and then accumulate there for a little, and then see another spike. So the accumulation phase, I expect it to be next week. That spike would be the week after. But I do expect the stock to be a really nice hold and a really nice swinger. But you need to pipe a little bit to fade down a little. And definitely there's going to be more PRs coming. So it is full of catalysts. And I do believe that this is one or more of the longer terms. What do you think about this ticker? Make sure you mention down in the comments below. Share, subscribe, and like, and have a wonderful day.